Nutrition Mobile, quality e-learning experience on the go.
Okay, you're welcome once again to yet another biological session. I am Olajide, and this program is brought to you by Fusion Mobile E-Learning Clinic. And so for today, we're going to be looking at some properties and functioning of the cells. We've been able to establish the definition of cells, the basic structure and functionality of life. We've looked at so many biological scientists that worked on cells, ranging from Robert Hooke down to Rudolf von Virchow. We looked at the cell theory, we looked at the types of cells, we looked at the existence of cells. We looked at cell organisms and everything that has to do with cell. And so today we're going to be looking at the properties and the basic functioning of the cell. As an outline, we're going to be looking at the nutrition, the usefulness of food, the types of nutrition, the roles of enzymes, mineral salts, metabolism, feeding, notably in amoeba, paramecium, and spirogyra. We're going to be looking at respiration, movement, and everything. Everything you need to know as regards to cell. We're going to be looking at it. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere and stay focused. So nutrition. And before now, in our previous lessons, we've been able to establish the definition of nutrition. We said nutrition is generally known as the mode of feeding of living organisms. We said they are broadly divided into two. We have the autotrophic mode of nutrition and the heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Autotrophic is meant for plant, hetero is meant for animal. Autotrophic is also known as holophytic, heterotrophic is known as holozoic. We looked at the basic forms of autotrophic nutrition, which ranges from photosynthesis down to chemosynthesis. While for animal nutrition, we've looked at the feeding habits, ranging from herbivores, carnivores, omnivores, frugivores, scavengers, and granivores. While we also look at the biological association ranging from parasitism, commensalism, amensalism, symbiosis, mutualism, and lastly, we looked at saprophytism. So for today, we're just going to be brushing through. Should you be having any issues, you can still go back and divulge the video. So what is nutrition? As we said, nutrition is the mode of feeding of living organisms. And now we're going to be looking at the usefulness of food. You and I know that the usefulness of food cannot be overemphasized. Food is needed for growth. Food is needed for survival. Food is needed for energy. Food is needed for the repair of worn-out tissue. Recall sometimes ago we looked at balanced diet. We said it is the menu that contains all the classes of food in the right portion. We looked at the classes of food. We looked at carbohydrate, protein, fat, and oil. We looked at water, mineral, salt, and the likes. And we said of all these classes of food, the one that gives the body the most needed amount of energy, or the chief source of energy, is known as fat and oil. As regards the normal notion or normal thinking of carbohydrate as being the chief source of energy. And so we believe that, and we are still running with that. And so basically, the usefulness of food cannot be overemphasized. It is needed for growth. It is needed for the repair of worn-out tissue. It is needed for survival as well. It is needed for the development of the structures present in the body. So what are the types of nutrition? As I've said earlier, we have autotrophic mode of nutrition. We have heterotrophic mode of nutrition. What are the roles of enzymes pertaining to the functioning and the properties of the cell? Before now, we also talked on enzymes. We said enzymes are organic catalysts that speed up the rate of chemical reaction. We use the word alters because they either speed up, or at times they could be seen as slowing down, or in the reverse reaction of activities. So we said the best word to use is alter. So enzymes are organic catalysts that alters the rate of chemical reaction, but at the end they remain the same. They are unchanged. We looked at their properties. We said enzymes are proteinous in nature. Enzymes work best at 37 degrees Celsius. Enzymes catalyze reversible reaction. Enzymes are specific in nature. We said enzymes are denatured by pH. Enzymes are affected by some other circumstances. We looked at the types of enzymes. We said we've got basically two types of enzymes: intracellular enzymes and extracellular enzymes. Intracellular enzymes are in the body functioning in some particular cells, and notably in the mitochondria as a cell organelle. We look at extracellular enzymes. We said these ones, they function outside the cell. It is not outside the body, but outside the cell. And so we're going to be looking at mineral salt, and we've also looked at mineral salt before now. We said minerals are needed by plants for growth. We said minerals are broadly divided into two. We have the macro minerals, or the macronutrients, or macro elements, as the case may be, and we have the micronutrients. We said the macro elements are needed in large quantities for growth, while micronutrients are needed in smaller quantities for growth. For the macro, we made mention of nitrogen, we made mention of manganese, we made mention of magnesium, rather. We said nitrogen, magnesium, oxygen, carbon, calcium, and the likes. Those major ones, they are there for what? They are there for macro elements. While for micro elements, they are needed in what? Smaller quantities. We said examples are cobalt, molybdenum, iodine, I have cobalt, molybdenum, iodine, chlorine, and we looked at one other one, manganese. And so in that particular class, I said we shouldn't be carried away by the pronunciation or the spelling of magnesium and manganese. And manganese belongs to micro family, while magnesium belongs to macro family. Don't forget, it is very, very important and not to be carried away by that. So now for today, now we're going to be looking at metabolism. So what is metabolism? Metabolism is the sum total of biological processes or the sum total of growth processes taking place in the body. I take it again. Metabolism is the sum total of growth processes taking place in the body. Metabolism is the sum total of growth processes taking place in the body. There are basically two types of metabolism. There are basically two types of metabolism. We have catabolism, and we've got anabolism. And so there are basically two types. We have catabolism and we have anabolism. The word kata means to break down. The word kata means to break down. And the word ana means to build up. To build up. So in all totality, catabolism is a breaking down process. A breaking down metabolic process. And while anabolism is a building up metabolic process. So we're going to be looking at the various build up metabolic process in the body and the various breakdown metabolic process in the body. I recall before now we established the fact that the unit of protein is called amino acid. That when amino acid is broken down, we have what? When protein is broken down, rather, we have amino acid. And so we can say that the breakdown of protein into amino acid to release energy is a catabolic process. Because it involves what? Breaking down. It involves breaking down. So when you break down protein into amino acid, it is called a catabolic process. Are you with me? And we can also say that respiration is also what? A catabolic process. Why? Because respiration deals with the oxidation of food molecules, the breakdown of complex food molecules in order to release energy and some waste product as well. As for anabolism, which is a building up processes, is the building up of amino acid to form what? A particular protein. The building up of amino acid to form a particular protein. And aside that, we have photosynthesis. Recall, photosynthesis is one of the major processes that leads to food production. As a matter of fact, it is part of the fulcrum of survival in nature. It involves the production of food via two processes: water, CO2 in the presence of chlorophyll, sunlight, and the leaf traps this. The leaf make use of it, and energy is released in the form of ATP. And it is stored and it is harnessed into use. So basically, photosynthesis is an anabolic reaction. So don't forget, photosynthesis, the build-up of protein from amino acid, the anabolic reaction. While for catabolism, respiration is one, as well as what? The breakdown of protein into amino acid. So that's what you need to know about metabolism. So next on our list is feeding. Feeding is a subset of nutrition. Feeding talks about what you're feeding on, your habit of feeding on. But for this class, we'll be looking at the style of feeding, as in the mode of feeding, the process of feeding. So that's what it entails by feeding. And we're going to be looking at three major organisms. We're going to be looking at amoeba, we're going to be looking at paramecium, and we're going to be looking at spirogyra. Don't forget, we have organisms that exist as single cell or free living. Those are amoeba and paramecium. We have cells that exist as filaments, and that's spirogyra. We have cells that exist as colony, and that's the volvus, the pandorina, the eudorina, as a case may be. And what is an amoeba? We've established that amoeba has an amoeba shape or an irregular shape. And now, amoeba moves with the aid of the pseudopodia. And there's something you need to know again. Amoeba digests food with the aid of the pseudopodia. The process of digestion of food in amoeba is called engulfing. So this will happen when an amoeba gets to the site of food. When an amoeba gets to a place where it notices that there is a food there, it goes very close to it. It opens its pseudopodia. The pseudopodia will engulf the food. When the pseudopodia engulf the food, digestive enzymes will be secreted, and they work in the breaking down of food. And by so doing, the food goes inside the amoeba, and the food, they all live happily thereafter. You know what happens? Amoeba becomes the winner. The food adds to the amoeba. However, some food that are not needed are also being, amoeba will ignore them. And by so doing, the food stays there on the ground, and amoeba makes use of the one it's in need of. So don't forget, engulfing is the process. Pseudopodia is the organ. The digestive enzymes aids the feeding process. So paramecium. Paramecium belongs to the class ciliata. Amoeba belongs to the class sarcodina. Don't forget. So for paramecium makes use of their cilia. C-I-L-I-A. So this is what happened. Notably, all these organisms are found in a water area. So paramecium are present in the water, notices its food from afar. This is what it uses. It makes use. Paramecium will make use of the cilia in beating the water surface. So by so doing, the food comes very close to the paramecium. The paramecium opens its mouth. The endosperm, endoplasm, so to speak. The endoplasm secretes enzymes, and these enzymes actually, the food goes straight into the gullet. The part that is not needed is actually left to float in the water. So don't forget, the gullet is involved. The endoplasm secretes digestive enzymes. Paramecium makes use of the cilia. It beats the surface of the water. Continuous beating of the surface of the water brings food closer to it. So the food goes in with the water. Don't forget. And the part that are not needed are left goes out through the anal pore. Don't forget. So lastly, Spirogyra. Listen up, class. Amoeba and paramecium, their mode of feeding is holozoic. It is an animal type of nutrition. Spirogyra is a plant. So theirs is what? A holophytic type of nutrition. Spirogyra is a holophytic type of nutrition. As for Spirogyra, it makes use of photosynthesis to manufacture its food. Don't forget, it makes the photosynthesis to do what? To manufacture its food. So the next on our list now is respiration. You and I are going to be traveling to the world of respiration. We're going to be looking at the types of respiration. We're going to be looking at the processes of respiration, the importance of respiration in nature, and I'm sure we'll enjoy it. Okay, you're welcome back. And for this session, still on some properties and functioning of the cell, we're going to be looking at respiration. Respiration. So what is respiration? Most of us, we have this issue distinguishing between respiration and breathing. I said in some of our previous lessons that breathing is not respiration, but breathing is a form of respiration, but it can never be called respiration. Why we do something like this? We're taking in oxygen, and why we do something like we're bringing out carbon dioxide or carbon dioxide, as the case may be. So that's breathing. But when we do this, and energy is released, we call it respiration. So the taking in of oxygen to break down food molecules, and in the breaking down of this food molecule, energy is released, is called respiration. Are you with me? So respiration can basically be defined as the oxidation of food molecules due to the intake of oxygen, leading to the production of energy. I think it was last time. Respiration can be defined as the intake of oxygen or the oxidation of food molecules. The word oxidation simply means oxygen catalyzing reaction. Oxygen catalyzing, a reaction in which oxygen catalyzes, a reaction that will not go forth without oxygen. So respiration can basically be defined as the intake of oxygen to break down food molecules leading to the production of energy. However, there's something you need to know. And when you say it is oxidation of food molecules leading to the when you say it is the intake of energy leading to the oxidation of food molecules to release energy, you have to be very, very careful because there are some types, not even some, there is a type of respiration that does not involve oxygen. However, energy is still produced. So it is better for us to say respiration is the breaking down of food molecules to release energy. The breakdown of food molecule could be by the use of oxygen, and so we call it what? Aerobic. Or it could be in the absence of oxygen. We call it what? Anaerobic. Are you with me? So respiration can basically be defined as the breakdown of food molecules to release energy. It can basically be defined as the breakdown of food molecule to release energy. Now this energy is stored in the form of ATP. The way we keep our money, our money is actually in naira. We spend naira here. When it comes to respiration, the energy they recognize, the energy they use, the energy they spend is called ATP. You can say give me 2 ATP there, give me 5 ATP there. So instead of saying 5 naira, theirs is ATP. The world economy transactional rate is naira. Are you with me? So respiration involves the breakdown of food molecules to release energy. There are basically 2 types of respiration. One have aerobic respiration and one have anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration is the breakdown of food molecules by the action of oxygen. It's a breakdown of food molecule by the action of oxygen. Anaerobic respiration takes place in the absence of oxygen. It takes place in the absence of oxygen, while aerobic respiration takes place in the presence of oxygen. So we're going to be looking at aerobic respiration extensively. Don't forget, aerobic respiration is a breakdown of food molecules due to the intake of oxygen to release energy. That is aerobic respiration. And it leads me to tell you the aerobic respiration has two pathways. Aerobic respiration has two pathways, and those pathways are called glycolysis and Krebs cycle. I will call it glycolysis and Krebs cycle. Now, glycolysis takes place in the cytoplasm. Glycolysis takes place in the cytoplasm. While Krebs cycle takes place in the what? In the mitochondria. The mitochondria is called powerhouse. The cytoplasm is actually the fluid cavity of the cell. Almost every organelle diffuse themselves into the cytoplasm. Are you hearing? As a matter of fact, the cytoplasm plus the protoplasm will give you the cell. The cytoplasm plus the protoplasm will give you the cell. And so we're going to be looking at aerobic respiration extensively now. So aerobic respiration, as I've said earlier, involves the intake of oxygen to break down food molecules in order to release energy. The energy is stored the energy is stored in form of ATP. ATP is adenosine triphosphate. Adenosine triphosphate. That's the meaning of ATP. Adenosine triphosphate is the meaning of ATP. As well as the formula for aerobic respiration, glucose. Amaka is going. Okay. And so this is called glucose. And so we take in oxygen. Oxygen is gas, glucose is solid. Oxygen. And so when we take this, energy is released. Energy is released in form of ATP. Aside from this, CCO2 is released. This is gas as well. So aside from, we have energy at ATP plus energy at ATP. So when we break down food molecules, we release oxygen, and we release energy at ATP, and lastly we release water. And so if you look at this critically, you can even say this equation looks like that of photosynthesis. Yes, but this is the reverse of photosynthesis. For photosynthesis, we are going this way. This. We are going this. Energy here in the form of sunlight. We are going this way, and we release this. For respiration, we are going this way. So basically, when oxygen act on glucose, they produce carbon dioxide. So we call carbon dioxide. The energy at ATP, and this is water. So this is what is released. This is what is released. So now we're basically going to be looking at glycolysis, which are the pathway to get this glycolysis, and we're going to be looking at Krebs cycle. Now glycolysis takes place in the cytoplasm. It takes place in the cytoplasm. Don't forget, glycolysis takes place in the cytoplasm. There is a phosphorylation of a 3-carbon sugar. There is a phosphorylation of a 3-carbon sugar, and it is called pyruvic acid. It is called pyruvic acid. A phosphorylation of a 3-carbon sugar called pyruvic acid. Are you with me? Now, glycolysis produces pyruvic acid. Now, this pyruvic acid, when oxygen is present, we go straight. Okay, now we've gotten pyruvic acid. What happens next? We largely depend on the fact on whether oxygen is present or not. If oxygen is present, it goes straight into Krebs cycle, or it goes straight into Krebs cycle, which takes us in the mitochondria, and then we have energies produced and all that. But when oxygen is not there, that means it will follow a path of anaerobic respiration. It won't be like the normal aerobic again. So that one will experience fermentation. We will also be discussing that. So this cytoplasm will have phosphorylation of a 3-carbon sugar to give us what? Pyruvic acid. At the end of the day, we have a net of 2 ATPs. we have a net of 2 ATPs produced. So don't forget, it takes place in the cytoplasm. Firstly, there's a phosphorylation of a 3-carbon sugar. Phosphorylation means the addition of the phosphate group of a 3-carbon sugar. Then at the end, we have a pyruvic acid. Pyruvic acid is produced. Pyruvic acid is a 3-carbon sugar. It is produced. Then at the end of the whole glycolytic reaction, we have a net of 2 ATPs produced. So now let's move to the other one, which is the Krebs cycle. The Krebs cycle. So firstly, the Krebs cycle takes place in the mitochondria. The Krebs cycle takes place in the mitochondria. The mitochondria is also known as the powerhouse. So this pyruvic acid is being worked on, and at the end of the day, we have the citric acid. The citric acid is a 6-carbon sugar. Then we have a net of 36 ATPs produced. Recall I said ATP is a means for storing energy. It's like a kind of currency. And so for glycolysis, we have 2 ATPs. For Krebs cycle, we have 36 ATPs. So the total of ATPs produced in aerobic respiration is 38 ATPs. So if you ask under glycolysis, how many ATPs of energy was produced? Net ATPs of energy was produced. I would say it is 2 ATPs. Under Krebs cycle, we have 36 ATPs. While the overall net ATPs produced is 38 ATPs. Don't forget, for glycolysis, it takes place in the cytoplasm. For Krebs cycle, it takes place in the mitochondria. For glycolysis, pyruvic acid is produced. For Krebs cycle, citric acid is produced. For glycolysis, a net of 2 ATPs is produced. For Krebs cycle, a net of 36 ATP is produced. And for Krebs cycle, oxygen is actually the factor, the dependent factor that continues the reaction. So briefly, we're going to be looking at the anaerobic respiration. Okay, so we've spoken a lot concerning aerobic respiration. I said aerobic respiration involves the use of energy. We have 2 basic pathways. We have glycolysis and we have Krebs cycle. For glycolysis, there is a phosphorylation of a 3-carbon sugar, and at the end of the day, we have pyruvic acid. Pyruvic acid is produced. Pyruvic acid is actually a 2-compound molecule. Pyruvic acid is produced. So now, after glycolysis, we'll go straight into a Krebs cycle. The link between glycolysis and Krebs cycle is what we call acetyl-CoA. Acetyl-CoA. It is called acetyl-coenzyme. So it is the acetyl-CoA that would actually act on the pyruvic acid. It will act on the pyruvic acid to produce what we call citric acid. Act on the pyruvic acid to produce what we call citric acid. So the link between glycolysis and Krebs cycle is called acetyl-coenzyme. The link between glycolysis and Krebs cycle is called acetyl-coenzyme. Krebs cycle is also called TCA, tricarboxylic acid cycle. It is also called tricarboxylic acid cycle. It's also called tricarboxylic acid cycle, TCA. Don't forget this, tricarboxylic acid cycle, TCA. So those are the basic facts you need to know about glycolysis and Krebs cycle. About glycolysis and Krebs cycle, glycolysis takes place in cytoplasm. Krebs cycle takes place in the mitochondria. So now we're basically going to be looking at anaerobic respiration. And now it will interest you to know that anaerobic respiration in plants will form what we call ethanol. Anaerobic respiration in plants will form what we call ethanol. In the muscle of animal, it will form what we call lactic acid. It will form what we call lactic acid. Anaerobic respiration in plants will form ethanol, while in the muscle of animal it will form lactic acid. Anaerobic respiration takes place in the absence of oxygen. It takes place in the absence of oxygen. It involves a process called fermentation. Now this fermentation is basically carried out by a unicellular organism called yeast. Now yeast is actually a fungi. A fungi is plural, so in this case yeast is a fungus. Yeast is yeast is a fungus. The scientific name is Saccharomyces cerevisiae. So basically yeast would with the help of a certain enzyme called zymase. And now you need to know that even aside from these zymates, there are other enzymes that are associated with it. We have diastase as well, but for the sake of this class, we will be sticking with zymates. So zymates, and with the help of the yeast, they act on glucose and they form carbon dioxide and what? Alcohol, carbon dioxide and alcohol, and that is seen in plants. Why? When they act on glucose and they form lactic acid, it is seen in the muscles of animals. So we're basically going to be looking at the formulas before. So here no oxygen is there, and so it will give us CO2, and it will give us 2C2H5OH, and so this is the formula for alcohol. Then lastly, energy will be released. Energy at what? ATP. And so this is it for plant. And so basically, we have our yeast acting on this, yeast acting on this. We have our zymates, and there is no oxygen. So when they act on glucose, they form carbon dioxide, and they give us ethanol. Is ethanol. And last we have energy at ATP. And so next on our list, we're going to be looking at the basic differences between aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. So for here, water is given off. For aerobic respiration, water is given off as a byproduct. As we have seen earlier, water is given off as byproduct for aerobic respiration. While for anaerobic respiration, ethanol is given off as byproduct. I don't know what's wrong with my marker. Ethanol is given off as byproduct. It requires oxygen. It doesn't require. It requires oxygen. It doesn't require. Aerobic respiration takes place where? Okay. So for aerobic respiration, one major product of aerobic respiration is what we call water and carbon dioxide. So here it releases water and carbon dioxide. Don't forget C6H12O is when you break it down. Release water and carbon dioxide. For anaerobic acid, it releases lactic acid. Aside from lactic acid, it also releases ethanol. So it's either lactic acid or ethanol. Don't forget. Aerobic respiration takes place in the mitochondria. Anaerobic respiration takes place in the cytoplasm. So lastly, more energy is released. While less energy is released. So can we just go through it? For aerobic respiration, water is given off. It's given off as what? As byproduct. It's given off, let's not use by, okay? It's given off as byproduct. Water is given off as byproduct. Ethanol is given off as byproduct. Aerobic requires oxygen, anaerobic does not. Aerobic releases water and CO2. Remember the formula. One anaerobic releases lactic acid or ethanol. Lactic acid in plant, lactic acid in the muscle of animals, ethanol in plant. Aerobic respiration takes place in mitochondria. Anaerobic respiration takes place in cytoplasm. Aerobic respiration, more energy is released. Anaerobic respiration, less energy is released. So now we're going to be looking at so basically we're going to be looking at excretion and growth. We're going to be starting with excretion, and then from there we're going to be looking at growth. Excretion. So before now, we've looked at excretion. We've established the fact that excretion is the removal of toxic metabolic waste products from the body. These waste products, they are left in the body, they are harmful, they are poisonous, they affect the efficiency of the cells. And we looked at some organisms and their waste product. We said for insects, we have the Malpighian tubules. For earthworm, we have the Nephridia. For Platyhelminthes, we have the flame cells. For plants, we have the Nentis cells and the stomata. For animals, we said we have the skin, the kidney, the liver. We've got many organs like that. So now we're not going to be going into that. I'm actually referring you back to the previous classes on excretion. Now we're going to be looking at forms in which we excrete substances. Those waste products from the body, what kind of form do they take? So waste products from the body takes three forms. We have the liquid forms. We have the gaseous form. And lastly, we have the solid form. So when waste products come out as tannins, alkaloids, and when they come out as tannins, alkaloids, we call them what? Solid form. And when waste products come out in form of gas, we call them gaseous form. Examples are oxygen, CO2, ammonia. Oxygen, CO2, and ammonia, they are gaseous form. We also have liquid form. When they come out as urine, when they come out as urea, urea, when they come out as gum, we call them what? Liquid form. And you know the importance of excretion. It helps to empty the body. It helps to make the various parts of the body function well. So we looked at excretion. Now we're going to be looking at so basically now we're going to be looking at growth. Okay, we're going to be looking at growth. By extension, we're going to be looking at cell division. We're going to be looking at cell enlargement. And lastly, we're going to be looking at cell differentiation. Okay, growth. Are you still with me? What is growth? So growth is an appreciable increase in size and weight of an organism. Growth is an appreciable increase in size and weight of an organism. Growth is an appreciable increase in size and weight of an organism. Growth is an irreversible increase in the size and weight of an organism. And one thing about growth is that it is irreversible. There's nothing like, hey, I'm 20 years of age. What can I do to get to age 5? It's actually absurd. So growth is forward in nature. Growth is not going forward and backward. No, growth is forward in nature. Growth is linear in nature. Growth is irreversible in nature. So growth is an irreversible increase in the size and weight of an organism. And this is due to the rate of metabolism, the rate of respiration, rate of growth processes in the body will actually show you something that is obvious over time. Okay, there are points you need to note under growth. The points you need to note under growth. So as I said earlier, I said growth is an appreciable increase in the size and weight of an organism. Another definition is this: growth is an irreversible increase in the size and complexity of an organism, and it is brought about by the production of new protoplasm. Okay, so now we're going to be looking at the differences between mitosis and meiosis. We'll be able to establish the fact that under cell division they are basically divided into two. We have mitosis and we have meiosis. And now, even before we take this, I would love to actually shed some light on some particular information. And now, mitosis is known as karyokinesis. It is known as cytokinesis. It is known as cytokinesis. It means it involves the cytoplasm. And for mitosis, after cell division, what will be formed is actually the exact copy of the parent cells. This is what I'm trying to say. If the parent chromosome is 14, for example, the resulting offspring or the resulting child will also have 14. And so mitosis is diploid in nature. It is diploid in nature, 2n. It means the set of chromosomes that the resulting child will possess is the same in number as the parent of the child. If I'm a father, I've got 46 chromosomes, my child, if it is diploid, my child will also have 46, but unfortunately we don't undergo diploid when it has to do with gamete formation and reproduction. It is haploid, and that's because we are dealing with meiosis. And so mitosis, it is diploid, 2n. It is also called cytokinesis. It involves the cytoplasm. It affects somatic cells. It affects somatic cells. What are somatic cells? Somatic cells are cells that are involved in the growth and in the development of an organism. They are not involved in the reproduction of an organism. They are involved in the development of the body, in the growth of the body, but not in reproduction. And so basically, somatic cells are all cells aside from the gametic cells. They are all cells aside from the gametic cells. What are gametic cells? Gametic cells are the sex cell. They are the sex cell which are sperm, a male, and they are what? Egg, a female. And for plants, here they are pollen, and here they are ovules. Are you with me? And so basically, that's what we are. That's what you need to know under mitosis. However, there are also stages for mitosis. There are stages in mitosis. These stages are called IPMAT. IPMAT. I-P-M-A-T. IPMAT. I-P-M-A-T. I is known as interphase. The P is called prophase. M is called metaphase. A is called anaphase. And T is called telophase. So the interphase is the first stage. It is known as the resting stage of the plant or of the organism. Interphase is known as the resting stage or the latent stage of the plant or the organism. We have the prophase. The prophase is divided into prophase 1 and we have prophase 2. So basically for prophase 1 and prophase 2, what you'll be seeing is the formation of spindle, and at this stage the chromatids are visible. The chromatids are visible at the prophasive stage. However, the chromatids become bulkier. They are clearly seen. They are conspicuous at the metaphase stage. And metaphase also have 1 and 2. For the anaphase, there is a separation of the chromatid material. There is a separation, and one will move towards the north side, the other will move towards the south side. So at this point, there is crossing over. While lastly, the rearrangement of the chromatids is called the telophase. So after the telophase, interphase will come in again. Prophase will follow, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, like that basically. So these are the stages for mitosis. There are also the stages for meiosis. And now these are the basic points on mitosis. Let's look at the basic point on meiosis. Meiosis is called karyokinesis. It's called karyokinesis. It involves the nucleus itself. It involves the nucleus itself. It is not just the cytoplasm. It involves gametes, or gametes as the case may be. So there are basically two ways of producing gametes. We have what we call spermatogenesis. We have the spermatogenesis, and we have the oogenesis. Now, for spermatogenesis simply means the production of sperm, while oogenesis means the production of eggs. And so these two, they are under meiosis. Now, for meiosis, at the end of the day, what will be formed will be haploid number. Haploid simply means half the total number present in the parent. If the parent has 40 chromosomes, it's going to be 20 for the child. So that's what we call haploid. And so they've got haploid. Half the total number of chromosomes. Again, they are responsible for what? They affect gametes. They are responsible for reproduction. Anything that has to do with reproduction, that has to do with pollen grain, that has to do with sperm, that has to do with egg cell, those are basic stuff that have to do with them. We'll call it a meiotic development. And so now we're going to be looking at the difference between mitosis and meiosis. As I've explained earlier, mitosis affects somatic cells, while meiosis affects gametes. They affect gametes basically. And for mitosis, the parent and the new cell, their chromosome are the same. Don't forget, their chromosome number are the same. While for meiosis, half the number of chromosome is present. That means here we can say they are what? Haploid. While right here they are what? diploid. Now, two offspring cells are formed. Two offspring cells are what? They are formed here. So if two are formed here we have 4. Why? Because at this particular point, at this place, we have just one stage of division. Why you have two stages of division? At this one, I'm trying to say for mitosis, at the end of the day, you have one offspring with one particular cell will divide into 2. Are you with me? And so that's for mitosis. But for meiosis, you're not just stopping here. You're having another division. It's like 2 stages of division. And so these 2 will also divide into 2. And so basically, how many do you have there? We have got 4. And so here, 2 offspring cells are formed. 4 offsprings are formed. There is no exchange of material between the chromatids. There's no exchange of material between the chromatids. That reminds me, that means since there's no exchange of material between the chromatids, then the base, the fulcrum, or the foundation of asexual reproduction can be gotten from mitosis. So mitosis helps in what? Asexual reproduction. Are you with me? They are the foundation of asexual reproduction, because that's what asexual reproduction involves. Asexual reproduction stemming from budding, grafting, layering, marcoting, bud grafting, where you make use of the scion and the stalk. Basically, it involves replication without variation. We'll be looking at that as well. And so there is no exchange of materials between the chromatids. While for the meiosis, there is exchange of materials that result in variation. There is exchange of material that result in what? Variation. And now, how do we get this variation? It is because there is crossing over. There is crossing over here, while here there is no crossing over. It involves only one stage. It involves 2 stages. So don't forget, for meiosis as well, we have interphase, we have the prophase, we have the metaphase, the anaphase, and the telophase, and their characteristics are almost similar. And so these are things you need to know under mitosis and meiosis. So now we're going to be looking at the aspect of growth. Okay, so now we're going to be looking at the aspect of growth, the terms that are associated with the aspect of growth. And so we have the wet mass. So this is the mass of a particular cell, the mass of a particular organism under normal condition. Under normal condition, we'll call it the wet mass. And we have the dry mass. This is the original mass of the organism. And most times when a cell has been immersed in water, it accumulates water or it absorbs water. So in that particular place, for you to get the dry mass, you have to subtract the wet mass from the original mass. So we'll get the dry mass. But one thing about the dry mass is that the organism could easily be killed at this stage because it's experiencing dryness, so there is no support, so to speak. Okay, so now we've looked at wet mass. I said wet mass is the mass of an organism under normal condition. We looked at dry mass, which is the original mass, and at this point it is delicate for the organism because it speaks of the originalness of the organism. We have size and length. The size and length of an organism can be measured at regular interval. We have increase in cell number, like yeast, which is a unicellular organism. When it divides, it acquires more cells. And so by counting the number of cells, it is actually a proof that the cell is actually growing. As in the region of fastest growth in plant, the region of faster growth, or the fastest growth in plant can be seen in stem and root apices. And these are the places where we have the terminal buds. They are the places where we have the terminal buds, the lateral buds, and the axillary buds. So those are the region of fastest growth, the stem and root apices. We have the terminal buds, the lateral buds, and the axillary buds there. The region of cell fastest growth, we have the region of cell division, the region of cell elongation, we have the region of cell maturation. These are the basic regions in plants. Now the region of cell division is the place, the point at which the cell divides. After then the cell elongates in size, increases in size. That's called the region of cell elongation. Then after then the cell acquires, or the cell procures a permanent growth form, so to speak. So we call that the region of cell maturation. And when they acquire a permanent growth, the growth at this point is permanent, like the shape that is seen is permanent as well. So we call it the region of cell maturation. So now, what is responsible for the region of cell division? The region of cell division can also be called what? They are called the apical meristem. The apical meristem, and the apical meristem consists of cells that are actively dividing. It consists of cells that are actively dividing. As a matter of fact, they are always dividing. They are always dividing, or they are actively dividing. Are you with me? So they are responsible for the primary growth of plants. They are responsible for the primary growth of plants. The primary growth, the form of plant that you see at first, they are responsible for it. And so now we're looking at the factors affecting growth. There are basically two factors that affect growth. We've got internal and we have external factors. We have internal factor. Example of internal factor is our hormone. Our example of our external factor, we have our pH, the light, humidity, temperature, rainfall, and so on and so forth. And so now we're going to be moving straight into cell response. Sometimes ago we said one of the key characteristics of living organisms is irritability, the response of plant, the response of animal, the response of organisms to external stimuli. So we're going to be looking at it. And I remember that I said anything that stimulates the body is called the stimuli. And so basically we're going to be looking at cell response to stimulus. Okay, types cell reaction to the environment. And now if somebody should just come into your house and that person decide to give you a daily gift, like, okay, the person comes into your house on Monday and decides to give you a Monday gift, and the Monday gift happens to be something that is strange. It was actually a slap, a hot slap, and the slap landed on your face. You react. And there's a way humans react. They react by shouting at first. After reacting by shouting, they react by moving. Then lastly, they react by taking action. Are you think? And so that's all about human reaction. That's just a light joke. So cell reaction to the environment. When something is happening in the environment, how does the cell react? That's what we're studying basically. How does the cell react? Does the cell move towards the area of action, or does it move away? Does it embrace, or does it run away? So that's what we're looking at basically. So cell reaction to the environment. We've established the fact that anything that stimulates the body is called stimulus. We said irritability is the response of plant and animal to external stimuli. Irritability is the response of plant and animal to external stimuli. So cell reaction to the environment, there are basically three types of response. We have the tacit response. Tacit response, you can just say, stems from the word taxis. And we have the nastic response. That can also, the word tacit response can be called taxism. Nastic response can be called nastism. Entropic response can be called tropism. And we have tropic response as well. So we have nastic, we have tacit, and we have tropic response. And so now what is tacit response? Tacit response is the movement of parts of an organism to a response. Basically. Let me show you something there as well. Okay, so now what we've got on the board is movement. We're going to be looking at movement briefly. Movement simply means the change in position of a cell, of a body, of an organism with respect to time. The concept of time defines movement. Movement simply means the change in position, the change in location of an object with respect to time. And for the scope of this class, we're going to be looking at movement. We're going to be looking at cyclosis. We're going to be looking at movement structures in organisms such as flagella, and we're going to be looking at cilia as well. We're going to be looking at pseudopodia as well. So let's start from this. What is cyclosis? Cyclosis is basically the movement of protoplasm in the cell. Don't forget the protoplasm is the living component of the cell. So the movement of protoplasm in the cell is called cyclosis. What organism make use of the cyclotic movement of the protoplasm? Such organism is called amoeba. Now amoeba make use of the cyclotic movement of the protoplasm. As a matter of fact, they call theirs cytoplasmic streaming. Theirs is called cytoplasmic streaming. Are you with me? And the organ of movement basically is called the pseudopodia. The organ of movement of amoeba basically is called the pseudopodia. What is a flagella? A flagella is a whip-like projection. It is a whip-like projection. It is a whip-like projection. Something like this. A whip-like projection. It is found in organisms like Euglena viridis. It's found in Chlamydomonas arianditi, Chlamydomonas euglena. These organisms possess the flagella. What is the cilia? The cilia is a short, hairy structure. It is a short, hairy structure. Are you a short hairy structure? It is found in organisms like paramecium ciliata, paramecium. Are you me? So cyclosis is the movement of the protoplasm in the cell. Flagella is a whip-like projection found in Euglena, found in Chlamydomonas. Pseudopodia is found in amoeba. Amoeba move with the aid of the cytoplasmic streaming. The cilia is a short hairy structure and is found in paramecium. And so now we're going to quickly travel and look at reproduction. We're going to be looking at the types of reproduction and their various forms. So now we'll be looking at reproduction. Reproduction can basically be defined as the production of we can't use the word production because it seems like we're talking about a company now. So reproduction talks about the bringing forth of new individuals. Reproduction talks about the existence of new individuals, the bringing forth of new individuals, an increase in the population number. That's what reproduction talks about. It talks about the fusion of the male and the female gamete, as in sexual, or it talks about making use of parts of a plant to produce a whole plant, making use of part of a plant to produce a whole plant. That reminds me, I will also be explaining the concept of cloning in this class. So there are basically two types of reproduction. We've got sexual reproduction and we have asexual reproduction. The word asexual means it does not involve gametes. It means it is not sexual reproduction. It means it is an entirely different concept from the concept of sexual reproduction. So what is sexual reproduction? Sexual reproduction is the fusion. The word fusion means coming together. The word fusion means aggregate. The word fusion means intermixing. So sexual reproduction is the process by which male and the female gamete are fused together. Okay, so it involves the fusion of the male and the female gamete. What is the male gamete? The male gamete is called sperm. It is produced through a process called spermatogenesis. The female gamete is called the what? The egg or the ova. The egg is produced through a process called oogenesis. Are you with me? So basically, when the male and the female gamete are fused together, we say that concept is what? The sexual reproduction. And when gametes are involved, we say it is what? Sexual reproduction. And when the male and the female gamete fuse together, they form what we call the zygote. They form the zygote. The zygote undergoes mitosis to produce the embryo, but we're not going into that. But take note, when the male and the female gamete fuse together, they form the zygote. Often two parents are formed. Two parents are involved. Often two parents are involved, which is the father and the mother, the boy and the girl, the guy and the G's, the bae and the boo. As the case may be, two parents are involved. Usually, the offsprings that are being given birth to, the progeny that is being formed, they show variation. Why? Because the gamete from the mother mixes with the gamete from the father. The father has a distinct character that is clearly different from that of the mother. So both of them come together. The aggregate of such characters will be seen in the child. Are you with me? So variation is definitely present in the offspring. And one thing about them again is that the process is not rapid. The whole process is not fast. It takes time. It is less rapid. A very good form of sexual reproduction is what we call conjugation. Conjugation is seen in spirogyra, where the cell wall comes together, the cytoplasm stretches, the nucleus fuses together, and so on and so forth. So conjugation is seen in spirogyra. It is a form of sexual reproduction. So spirogyra undergoes sexual reproduction. Don't forget. Now, asexual reproduction, no gamete is involved. There is no fusion. A zygote is not formed. Only one parent is involved. All you need to do is look for a particular plant. Oh, I love this plant. Bring the plant. Take part of the plant. Propagate it on the floor. Once you see, it will grow into a whole new plant. Offsprings that are formed are identical. If the parent has got tribal mark, the offspring will have tribal mark. If the parent is tall, the offspring will be tall. If the parent is short, the offspring will be short. If this parent is undergoing stunted growth, often at times, if it is genetical and not due to nutrient, though it is due to nutrient, the resulting offspring will also undergo the same. It is rapid. It does not involve the fusion of the male and the female gamete. It is rapid. The various forms are we have four forms. The various forms are binary fission. Binary fission is seen in amoeba. We have budding. Budding is seen in yeast, where the yeast will break a fragmented part and it will continue. We have spore formation. Spore formation is seen in mucor, where the sporangiophore will bud the sporangiospore that encloses the spore. Don't forget, spore formation is seen in mucor. It is seen basically a fungi family. And lastly, we have vegetative reproduction. They are basically subdivided into two. We've got the natural form and we have the artificial form. The natural form is the use of their fleshy leaves. A fleshy leaf is seen in Bryophyllum pinnatum. It is locally called Ewe abamuda. Part of the fleshy leaf can be used to reproduce the plant. We also have the use of modified underground stem. Underground stem such as scombs. Scombs is seen in cocoyam. We have rhizomes. You could also make use of rhizomes as seen in ginger. You could make use of suckers as seen in banana, as seen in plantain, or as seen in pineapple. You could also make use of their bulbs as seen in onions. Artificial involves cutting. You cut part of the grasses or part of the plant. You plant it, then it grows. We have layering as well. We have layering, which is another form of artificial. We have budding. Budding involves when you make use of scion and you make use of the stalk. If, for example, this is a plant growing, you cut this part, you take away this part, you look for another part of a plant, then you put it on top. And it will also interest you that it is possible for you to have a particular tree where you see orange growing and you see lemon growing. If you happen to see such a thing, it is called budding. It is called budding. It is called it is called grafting rather. If you happen to see such scenario, it is called grafting. And so we have budding as well. Budding involves making use of the bud. When you make use of the bud to grow another plant, that's what we call budding. But grafting is just as I explained earlier, when you make use of the root stock. The root stock, this is the plant growing, you cut this part that is seen into the ground is called the root stock. Then you now bring in the top of another plant, you put it on top, then you might tie it with rubber, you might tie it with whatever, just to fuse them together. That is what we call grafting. It is the process used when you see a tree producing orange and lemon, or producing two different types of fruit but of the same family, closely related. We call it grafting. And lastly, we have marcotting, and when you pick one angle of the branches and that's all. So these are the things you need to know under reproduction. That reminds me, cloning. Cloning simply means bringing up another individual. For example, I'm standing here. You know my name. If it happens that you see somebody that looks like me, exactly like me, same eye, same stature, we probably might not be talking the same way. That's what we call cloning. It implies bringing up the replica of another person, the exact replica of another person. Cloning is not sexual, it is asexual. Asexual at the extreme. One thing about cloning is this: they could just clone 5 of me. I'm here teaching you. Another person is somewhere probably in Anambra stealing. Another person is somewhere in a church praying, healing the sick. Another person is somewhere sleeping with somebody. Are you with me? At the end of the day, one is very, very notorious. He kills another, and that's it. He became a murderer. They will be looking for that particular person that killed another person. So when they see me, they can arrest me. Anybody they see, since we are all look-alike, we are potential suspects. And so when they pick me, and that's all. Whereas I'm just here teaching you, you know, I'm not a criminal. I'm sure you know that. And so those are the basic things you need to know under reproduction. The scenario I just explained now is what we call cybercrime, basically. So I hope with this few point of mine, I've been able to convince you, but not to confuse you, that learning is actually vital. So should you be having problems with this, you can go over the video again. Some questions will pop up on your screen. Do the needful. Peace out. I love you.